Okay, I'm here with David Robeck, and he's here celebrating the Democrats' victory in Virginia. Thank you for being willing to interview on racism.
Yeah, thank you for being here. It's a very exciting night. We are incredibly happy with the results. I'm with Indivisible Arlington. We're a local grassroots organization co-hosting this event with another group called We Have Action, or WOFA.
Excellent. So, what is racism?
Well, to me, it's just the discrimination of one group by another. Simple sort of concept, but very complex in reality. For me, I got involved after the election when there was the immigration ban. My parents met working in a refugee camp, and I think that a lot of this had to do with racism. People not understanding what reality was, what the policies were.
Let me ask you a quick question. If you conclude somebody has bad character because they're black, would that be racism?
Yeah, if you're making assumptions about a person by the color of their skin, that is racism.
Right, so if you won't let someone into your club or your organization because of their race, that would be racism, right?
Yeah, that would be a definition of racism. Yeah, so
if you use race as a factor to evaluate other people's merits or their character, instead of focusing on their actions, that's racism.
So it was Martin Luther King who said that we should judge a man by the content of their character and not their skin.
Such a great and wise saying. I'm glad you quoted him. So, can a white congressman become a voting member of the Congressional Black Caucus?
Well, that's a great question. Again, we're not part of the Congressional Black Caucus. I've had friends who were with people like Hank Johnson or John Lewis, both incredible members. I believe they're both in the caucus. I'd have to get more information before I know anything specific, but yeah, I don't know why that would be an issue.
Well, I interviewed Congressman John Lewis and Congressman Claiborne. Both of them explained to me that a white congressman cannot become a voting member of the Congressional Black Caucus, and every other congressman that I've interviewed has said the same. So they exclude white congressmen based on their race. So is that racism?
I don't know much about that situation.
But if anybody, previously you had agreed that if you won't let somebody into your club or your organization because of their race, it's racism, right? You agreed to that, right?
Well, yeah, like I said before, I would refer you back to the Martin Luther King quote, that you should judge someone by the content of their character and not their skin color.
Right, so if they use the skin color to disqualify another congressman, that's racism.
Well, I think a good example is historically black colleges and universities that, again, when they were founded, those were schools that were there to provide a service that didn't exist, right, to help people who had been historically discriminated against. But you'll see that now you can't actually discriminate, you can't ban someone from a school, you can't do it just based on one race.
But so if any organization uses race to disqualify membership, that's racism. You agreed to that before, right?
I would use that HBCU example to understand what should be done, right? So even if an institution is historically, for one thing,
they shouldn't do that. They should let white congressmen become voting members of the Congressional Black Caucus, right? And in fact, one congressman from the Congressional Black Caucus agreed with me, Congressman Flake. I persuaded him, and he said, "Yeah, you're right. We should let white congressmen become voting members." So you agree with Congressman Flake?
Well, I would use the HBCU example where, an institution was historically black, but there's no ban to keep someone out based on their race.
Right. So you agree with Martin Luther King, right? So because you shouldn't judge people based on their race, you should judge people based on their actions, right?
Yes, that's correct.
And the reason for that is because a person's race does not determine their skills or their character, right?
Yeah, so you should judge a person by their character.
Yeah, and so that's why the Congressional Black Caucus should not exclude white congressmen from their organization based on race.
Well, I've worked in social inclusion, and I would say, generally speaking, that the more inclusion, the more diversity, the better.
Right. So, but if a white congressman wants to become a member, then they should let him become a member. How about universities who use race as a factor to evaluate the merits of membership into their university, and they give, say, black candidates extra points and favor them over white candidates? Is that racism?
So I'll give you two examples here. There's the system we have in the United States called equal